Okay, let's get started. So this is going to be lesson 12 of decimals, and it says that today your goal is students will be able to apply your understanding or their understanding of fraction equivalents. Remember, we did equivalents already, to add tenths and hundredths. So the ultimate goal is that you are able to do this by the end. And how we're going to do that is using two different skills today. You're going to be converting and you're going to be converting and adding. So first, let's start with converting. And if you go onto your problem set and scroll down, this looks a lot like it. So let's start with this one right here. It says, how would we add 1/10 plus 8 hundredths? And they want the answer in hundredths. So this is good to go. Same like when we did fractions and decimals. The decimals were already good to go. The hundredths here are good to go, but the tenths I can't put because my answer has to be in hundredths. So let me represent this on a place value chart. And in today's problem set, you won't be asked to represent, but on a place value chart, only the answer. But if this helps you, then do it because it will help you answer it. So I just represented 1/10 and 8 hundredths. I know that I can unbundle my tenth over here to make hundredths. Watch. And we know 1/10 is equal to 10 hundredths. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Awesome. So right away I see that 1/10 plus 8 hundredths is the same as 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18 hundredths. 18 hundredths. Okay, let's look at 2/10 plus 3 hundredths. Same deal. It would look something like, make a little line so we don't get confused. 2/10 and 3 hundredths. 1, 2, 3. If we move these here and this guy here, it would be 10 and 10. So I know that 2/10 that I moved over here, I just didn't want to draw 20 dots, but that's, or 20 discs. This is equal to 20. And 3 hundredths, that's equal to 23 hundredths. Now 1/10 and 14 hundredths. 1/10, let me make a line. 1/10 and 14, so we already have 14. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and I move 10 more over. That would be 10 and 14, 24 hundredths. The reason why it makes sense that every time you move a tenth into the hundredths, you get 10 tenths is the same reason why if you moved 1/10 into the ones, you would get 10 ones. If you moved 1 into the tenths, you would get 10 tenths. Because every time you move this way, it's like dividing by 100 because you turn 10 into 1. And this way, it's like multiplying by by 10 because you turn 1 to 10. So 1/10 is equal to 10 hundredths. That's why 1/10 plus 8 hundredths is equal to 18 hundredths. 2/10 plus 3 hundredths is equal to 23 hundredths. 1/10 plus 14 hundredths, that's like 10 and 14, is equal to 24 hundredths. And then you will have some that look a little bit longer like this. And all of this is doing is it's asking you to expand. So you have 8/10 plus 25 hundredths equals something hundredths plus something hundredths equals something hundredths. So this looks super confusing, but all you're doing is you're going to turn this guy into here. So 8/10 is the same as 80 hundredths. Because I did it in my head, if I had 8 dots and I put them over here, it would be 80. You multiplied that by 10. And then we're gonna put this guy into here. 25 hundredths, that's already in hundredths. So I'm gonna put the 25 in there. And now I have 80 plus 25, that's 105 hundredths. Okay, same thing goes for the bottom, 43 hundredths. And our answer, we wanted in hundredths. So we're actually not gonna change this into anything. That's already in hundredths. 43 hundredths is the same as 43 hundredths. But notice this part is in tenths, 6/10 into hundredths, because we have to make it into hundredths for it to belong here. So we have 6/10. If I had 6/10 and I brought them over here, then I would have 60 hundredths. So that's 43 hundredths plus 60 hundredths is 103 hundredths, okay? Notice the 8 tenths turn into 80 hundredths at the top. The 25 hundredths stayed the same, so I could have hundredths in my answer. In the bottom one, this one was already hundredths, so it stayed as a 43 hundredths. And this was tenths. So the tenths turned into 60 hundredths, so that I could have hundredths in my answers. Now, let's get into the, I think, easier part of this. Remember, when we first learned to add fractions, we could not add fractions with unlike denominators. The denominator is the boss. And here, the denominator is still the boss. You cannot have different bosses. They don't make sense like this. Because it's like saying 3 10-cent coins plus 7 pennies is equal to 10 what? 10 coins, but we want to have a denominator. So you will be using multiplication here, and it's really easy multiplication. Let me show you how. So what we're going to want to do with these is we're going to actually want to change the tenths. So the number that's going to change in all my answers are my tenths. So my 3 tenths, 5 tenths, 5 tenths. You have 8 tenths, 5 tenths, and 8 tenths. And these are the guys I'm going to change in every single one with multiplication. So I can't add 3 tenths plus 7 100ths, but I can turn that 10 into 100 by doing a simple multiplication. And that is multiplying the top and the bottom, because you always do the top and bottom. You can't just do one side, by 10. So this is the same as 30 hundredths, okay? And I'm gonna go through and convert all of them so that way you see how easy it is when you do this. Then you have 5 tenths. How do I make hundredths? Well, I multiply the top and the bottom by 10. Easy peasy, 50 over 100. Oh, it's the same one as above, 50 over 100. 8 over 10. Well, if I want to make 100, I'm going to multiply the top and the bottom by 10. That's the same as 80 over 100. And I have another 50 over 100. Easy peasy. And we have another 80 over 100. Easy. Now, because now you have this, you can go across and add. For example, 30 hundredths plus 7 hundredths equals to, and I'll bring this guy down just so I don't get you confused. 7 hundredths, you're still adding, is equal to 37 hundredths. Now, let me bring down my 1600 that was already there. 1600 plus 50 is equal 6600. Remember, when you add fractions, you don't add the denominators. They just have to be the same, and you add the numerators. Numerators is the top. So here you have 50 hundredths plus 40 hundredths. All I'm doing is bringing this guy down, is equal to 90 hundredths. And here we have 20 hundredths plus 80 hundredths is equal to 100 or 1 whole. Let me bring him down just so that we don't get confused. Now, here, let me bring down my other number. 53 over 100 is the same as 103 over 100, or 1 3 hundredths. And finally, 27 over 100 plus 80 over 100 is equal to 107 over 100. Oh, yes, that's correct. Or 1 7 over 100. So all this bottom part is telling you is that you cannot add tenths and hundredths together. You cannot add them. But you can turn tenths into hundredths and then add them together, okay? That's the big key here. You can't add unlike units. But you can convert to make them alike. So what we did here, sorry, I'm gonna finish writing or else I will lose my train of thought. So what we did here at the bottom is we turn our tenths into hundredths by multiplying the top and bottom by 10. Don't just say, oh, 3/10. Well, I want 100 at the bottom, so I'm gonna say 3/100. That is really, really, really wrong. Whenever you change the bottom of a fraction, you wanna change the top, and that continues to apply here. If you are having trouble with this guy, because it's a little bit harder, come to office hours, I'll go over some examples. But the big key up here with problems that look like this is that you know that 1/10 is equal to 10/100. That's why here 8/10 turned into 80, and that's why here 6/10 turned into 60, because I multiplied those numbers by 10. For each 1/10, I have 10/100. All right, so I will see you in office hours if you need extra help, but this actually looks very similar to the problem set. If you need your place value chart, pull out a paper and use it.